A scenic low-level beach run and a sudden engine failure. One passenger dead, others seriously injured. But was it just a tragic accident or something deeper? Could anything else have been done differently? This week I'm looking into an investigation currently underway before the courts with a pilot license hanging in the balance. Plus what everyone needs to understand about decision-making, risk-taking and strict liability. I'm going to discuss all this and more coming right up. So strap in and let's get into it.
Good morning, 3614, Alpha Mallow 7 POB with altitude.
Coordinating, Halen, I'm running bank balance, bank pressure rolling at 30 degrees. That's 30 degrees there. Stand by star 9000, 1013, K 525.
G'day everyone and welcome to episode 166 of the Flight Training Australia podcast. The podcast all about flight training and flying in Australia and beyond. I'm your host, Trent Robinson. G'day. Thanks for joining me. Well, big congratulations to this year's 2024 CASA Wings recipients. Presented at the Avalon Air Show recently. The Royal Aero Club in New South Wales taking out Aero Club of the Year. Georgie Arnold, Young Achiever of the Year. And my good mate, Jeremy Miller, taking out Flying Instructor of the Year over at UPRT Australia. All very well deserved and great to see everyone get their awards all together this time for the first time at the Avalon Air Show. So well done, everyone. So keep an eye out for nominations later in the year so you can make sure someone deserving wins an award. Right, pilot maintenance, really important skill set and one that can be of great benefit when you're out stuck all alone, whether you're a private owner, a employed pilot, or just someone who hires aircraft. Strike Aviation over in Caboolture, running a course coming up in the weekend of the 31st of May and the 1st of June. And there's a couple of others there also that are available if those dates don't suit you. It's going to be the CAR Schedule 8 pilot maintenance course. This is going to be for both GA and RA Oz pilots. And if you're not aware of what Schedule 8 is, this is the regulation that allows pilots to carry out certain elements of maintenance on their aircraft, things like spark plug changes, tire changes and the like, and oil changes. However, you are responsible for making sure you know what you're doing and you do it properly, and you can satisfactorily comply with any other rules and regulations, including permission from the HAMC if it's an operator aircraft. Right, the 2-day course, it will cover all those things. It's going to be hands-on training, and Paul will take you through a whole heap of that. Paul, as you know, works with me on the Create Better Pilots programs, and he is also a licensed LAMI as well as the operator at Strike Aviation. And this is a great thing that you can do to put on your resume just as another skill set that just helps you stand out from the crowd. So if you'd like to know more about that or to register, get in touch with Paul at Strike Aviation or follow the episode link below, and you'll be able to find the registration details on trybooking.com. All right. So today we're diving into an accident that really underscores the critical responsibilities we carry every time we take to the skies, especially when passengers are on board. And as always, I want to make sure that this episode, it's not about judgment, it's about learning, right? Because the best way we can honor those affected by accidents, incidents, tragedy, and death is by ensuring we do our very best to make sure it doesn't happen again. So this accident remains the subject of an ongoing legal proceeding. The discussion presented here is intended solely as educational example to highlight the importance of pilot decision-making, operational culture, and risk management. No assumptions or judgments are going to be made regarding the actions of the pilot involved, who undoubtedly did the best he could at the time under extremely difficult circumstances. All right, and I do recall this accident, but it's really popped up again. You will see there's a GoFundMe pages showing up on Instagram and Facebook at the moment, raising funds for the pilot in question, and with the concept or the notion that CASA are going after this pilot unfairly. So naturally, I'll go, all right, well, what is this all about? And I've had a good look at the accident report. And again, there's certain elements here that I'm going to just be cautious of going through, but I think it really highlights a lot with the things I've been talking about in the last few episodes or so with decision-making, responsibility and that. And I just wanted to raise some of the issues that are in the report and discuss them and expand them a little bit as how it's going to apply to pilots out there listening now. So what happened? On the 10th of January 2017, a Cessna 172M departed Agnes Water, ALA, in Queensland on a passenger charter flight to Middle Island. On board was the pilot and 3 passengers. At about 60 feet above sea level during an airborne inspection of the beach landing area, a strip regularly used by the operators, the aircraft suffered a sudden and total engine loss. The pilot initiated a turn back towards the beach, but the aircraft impacted with terrain with significant descent and little to no control. 1 passenger lost their life very sadly. The others, including the pilot, suffering serious injuries, and the aircraft was destroyed. Now, the ATSB have completed their findings, and I just want to, add at this point that I don't know the pilot, the operator, any of their history. I'm purely going off this report, and I am aware, however, that CASA acted and did things before the report came out. Whether that is the appropriate action or not, I guess that's up to CASA to decide and for everyone to have their opinion on that. But I'm just going to be going purely off the ATSB report. Now, according to the report, the engine was inspected thoroughly and no definitive cause for the failure was identified. But I can say that I have seen the video online and power was definitely lost. So don't know why it happened, but the pilot definitely lost power. The ATSB report did make it very clear that while we don't know why the engine failed, we certainly know the risks weren't managed. These flights frequently involved low-level beach inspections at altitude as low as 50 to 100 feet, flown at normal cruise speed over water with no plan in the event of an emergency. And this wasn't a one-off thing. This was a normal procedure. And the report went into saying that at the first flight of the day that this is what would happen. But one of their key criticisms was that there was no structured consideration of a forced landing site or escape option in the case of the worst case happening. And this is exactly what did happen. They felt that that risk was ignored or accepted. And this is where we want to have a look at where the lessons begin. Now, before we get to that, the conduct of the pilots and the operator and the culture there, the notion of making the flight a bit more exciting. The report also points to pilot conduct that went beyond what's necessary. Witnesses described the company's flight as thrilling or exciting and often involved abrupt maneuvers that weren't essential for safety, that weren't required for the maneuverability of the aeroplane. They were added in as a bit of a bit more excitement. There was no effective internal controls to prevent these maneuvers, no proper risk assessments, nothing to flag that this was an increased hazard. Now, I have seen this happen before where, we're going flying, and I can pretty much tell you that anyone who hasn't been flying before, that is more than enough. They're going to love it. They want to do an aerobatic flight or something else, then you go and book an aerobatic flight. But using a 172 to do low-level passes, high-speed climbs, descents, turns and all that, for a joy flight sort of thing, it starts pushing what's necessary. Now, I'm not going to cast judgment on whether that's appropriate or not. I've got my opinion on things, and I can tell you right now, I've certainly done that with friends and family and had a little bit of fun, but time and place. The passengers apparently were made aware of these sort of things happening and signed an additional waiver before they departed as well, as this was the normal process. So this potentially created an environment where the pilot may have just become used to this and the actions were acceptable and even expected. And therein lies the danger of poor organizational culture where the wrong thing or an unnecessary thing starts to become the norm. Right? We always want to fly safely. We can have our thrills and excitement, but right aircraft, right platform, right time, and correct safety message taking place. Right? When the lines start to blur, it's not just a safety issue, but it starts becoming a liability issue. Now, as far as the organisational failings in this report, the operator's oversight was seen as very lacking. You can read the report. That'll be in the episode description, of course, so you can have a full read of everything as I'm paraphrasing things. But it found that the aircraft flight hours were under-recorded. Now, that didn't necessarily lead to anything as far as this incident goes, but the flight hours being under-recorded, certain legs were not going down in the maintenance release. The aircraft was overweight, as argued by the ATSB. There's a bit of conjecture on that one. But baggage and supplies in the back were not secured by appropriately fitted cargo net. They were all loose. There was no real meaningful checks to make sure that passenger weights were correct or accurate. And CASA surveillance had not really looked at how these beach operations were being conducted, despite being the core business since 2009, according to the report. And I do know that is a little bit of an issue going on at the moment of how CASA are addressing certain aspects of operations going on around and things that everybody sort of knows about, but not necessarily being dealt with in the way that we would expect from a safety regulator. So when CASA eventually reviewed the operation after the crash, the ASE was suspended some couple of weeks later, and then ultimately it was cancelled at the request of the operator. So was this company starting to operate in a bit of a operator vacuum and a safety vacuum, perhaps, with the regulator and the organisation both failing to identify dangerous norms? Now, this is where I want to just talk about the event that led up to it, and that is the engine failure. Now, this is a very short flight. It's basically the aircraft takes off, gets to about 1,000 feet or so, crosses a headland, and then starts to descend to have a look at this beach. Now, I totally accept the need to do a beach inspection. Some people sort of go, what's a beach inspection, or why would you be doing that? Well, it's just like a strip inspection, isn't it? But a strip inspection needs to be done an appropriate way. If I was ever going to be doing a strip inspection, I'll typically be doing 20 inches or 2,000 RPM if for a fixed pitch prop, in this case the 172, and 10 to 20 degrees of flap, gear down. Now, there's several reasons for that. The first one is we want to be safe speed, but slow enough so that we can see out the window, actually inspect the strip that we're looking at, and make sure that it is indeed an appropriate airstrip to land on. Secondly, if we were to lose power, we are configured, ready for landing, albeit the last stage of flap, and could maneuver down and put the aircraft down if need be. Now, in this instance, the aircraft was essentially flying at about 120 knots. It was at high-speed cruise, and the aircraft was, according to the video that I saw, a fair way off the beach, well over the water and the waves. Now, the accident itself was led to the pilot taking action necessary to maneuver to the beach. And in this case, by the time they got to the point where the engine failure happened, the beach had just about run out and was a bit of an estuary inlet. And so from very low level altitude, he attempted a 180-degree turnaround back on the beach. And this, of course, is where the accident resulted. Simply too low to achieve it. So first thing, why was the aircraft so far out over the water? The strip inspection should have been right over the beach with the landing area just below the left window so the pilot could see what was going on. To me, this was part of the excitement of the flight and effectively a low-level beat up under the disguise of a beach inspection. Secondly, because of the high speed, when the engine failure took place, there probably was enough room to pull left and get down on the beach. Maybe they would have overrun slightly and gone into the water, but everyone would have been fine. But instead, it simply had too much speed and energy that section of landable runway was overshot. Now, I don't have all the facts and all this, but just looking at the video that I saw, I really believe that could have been the case. And it wasn't a properly conducted beach inspection. Not how I would have done it, and not how I know a lot of other people would have done a proper strip inspection in that manner. All right. The report goes on to say that then the pilot pitched up, banked across towards the beach. The stall warning sounded several times. Now, watching the video, I heard the classic 172 air vent squeal rather than a stall. But no doubt the aircraft ended up stalling at one point, which is where it impacted into the beach. Okay. Irrespective of all that, the aircraft was put into a unsafe position that he had no choice but to try and turn back because he didn't feel that a ditching in the water was going to be survivable or safe. And look, I probably totally agree with that. Irrespective of everything that happened, here's the crucial point that every pilot needs to understand. Under the Civil Aviation Safety Regulations, there's this thing called strict liability, and I've mentioned it several times before. So remember, the intent doesn't matter. Whether it was standard procedure, whether the management encouraged it, allowed it, permitted it, whether you've got permits or not, if you did the act knowingly or unknowingly, you're liable. That's strict liability. The pilot in this case may not have believed he was doing anything wrong, and I'm sure he didn't. I'm sure he's a lovely guy and thought that, this is all fine, and it's worked. He had thousands of hours. He'd done this. As I said, this was their core business. So he'd done it many, many, many times before without any issue whatsoever. But strict liability doesn't care about beliefs and values. The case is now before the courts, and how he performed, irrespective of whether he should have been in that position or not, is being questioned. The lawyers say that the aircraft should have kept the wings level, nose down, and 30 degrees either side of the heading effectively, what was like what we teach. But many are arguing that just simply wasn't practical in this case. But when we fly an airplane, when we put it into a certain position and attitude, when we take certain actions and make decisions, these are all the things we've got to do. Do we really need to be there? Do we really need to do that? Now, we could argue that till the cows come home because, we just should never be in the airplane. And some argue that's CASA's viewpoint, that, that way the skies will be safe when no one actually goes flying ever again. And that's not realistic, nor practical, nor even remotely close to what I am suggesting. But I can fly low. I can fly aerobatic. I can do many, many things. And, there's certainly temptations out there to drop it down on the deck or do this or do that and the other. But, there's a time and place for it. And if there's a nature of the operation that needs to be done, then you do it, and then it's mitigated and it's thought out, and what ifs are considered and allowed for. And sure, we cannot allow for every single possible event or operation, but we do need to be very, very careful and consider what we're doing. We are paying passengers, trusting us with their lives. So everything we do, the chance of a little thrill or a little bit of excitement, we've got to say, is that sensible enough, and not get carried overboard. All right. The safety message ultimately that I want to really share with everybody is not to normalize risk. All right. Low flying, not low-level trained, unnecessary maneuvers, no emergency plans. These are risks we can't afford to ignore. Right, so if you're flying low-level ops, whether it's for training, survey, or charter, you need structured procedures, risk mitigations, and clear emergency contingencies. All right, if you're an operator or a flight school, you want to be creating a culture that encourages safe operations, reporting and review when things aren't going right. Right? We don't want to be just relying on luck or good fortune or the fact that nothing has happened, so it must all be okay. All right. And to all instructors, show your students how to think about risk, not just the checklist, but the context, the what if. All right. We all love aviation. We love the freedom of flight, but that freedom comes with immense responsibility. So let's make sure we're flying not just legally, but safely, responsibly, and professionally. All right. What do you think? Have you had the read of the report? I'd love to hear your comments and your thoughts. As I said, there is a GoFundMe page available for the pilot in question. And if you feel that he deserves support for the accident once you've informed yourself, then by all means do that. I'll put the link to that in the episode description as well, and you can make your own decisions there. But there are consequences sometimes, whether we feel that they're right or wrong, and sometimes we can get caught up in other things going on with operators and that as well. So making sure that irrespective of who said it's okay or not, remember that you ultimately are the pilot in command. You are the one that carries the strict liability. All right, everyone. Thank you for listening. If it's made you have a bit of reflection, that's fantastic. That's what this is all about. And love to have your support. You can join me on Patreon, Flight Training Australia. And there are 3 levels of subscription there. That if you're getting value out of this podcast, I would love to have your financial support there that goes into all the creation of these episodes and the associated costs. You can also, of course, follow me on Instagram, LinkedIn, and Facebook for everything that's going on during the week, all the student celebrations of all their achievements, plus fun little videos, educational videos, tips and tricks, and all sorts of other stuff when I get around to it. All right. Until then, please share it with your team, share with your students, have a chat together, and let's continue creating better pilots together. Until next time, blue skies, and remember the golden rule: aviate, navigate, communicate. Cheers, everyone.